Ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't planning on making a review for Saturday night's main event, which is why you don't see any of the fancy subtitles that we do in the intros of every video. That's because my editor is asleep and doesn't know that I'm making this video because this was a last-minute decision. But there were things that happened at Saturday night's main event that I think are worth talking about in an extended environment, which is why I'm going to make this review. And yes, I'm predominantly talking about how Seth Rollins' injury is going to just fundamentally change everything as we head towards SummerSlam and the rest of the year. But we will talk about every single match. I'm going to tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and how storylines could shape up as we head towards SummerSlam. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I know that you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if you are looking for more than just the daily wrestling content that we do here, I really do encourage you to come check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Over there, we upload a bunch of extra content that never gets uploaded here, like match watch-alongs and Raw reviews and SmackDown reviews with footage. So go check it out, link in the description or link in the pinned comment. All right, folks, let's talk about Saturday night's main event. Before we dive into things on a match-by-match basis, I think it's important to note, to let you know that I watched like 8 straight hours of professional wrestling today. I watched the Great American Bash, I watched AEW All In, and of course, Saturday night's main event, which is the main topic of this video. But I'm just gonna come out and say it, that I think WWE counter-programming AEW this weekend was a colossal mistake, and it has completely backfired on the WWE. I saw the report a couple of days ago that WWE intends to continue to do this so that they can be the major talking point once the weekend settles and people aren't talking about AEW. Instead, they'll be talking about the WWE. Unfortunately, in this scenario, we are talking about the WWE, but predominantly people are now talking about Seth Rollins' injury, so this is a major backfire. Also, All In was just significantly better than both Great American Bash and Saturday night's main event, and I don't even think it was close. And you might say, well, Santi, it's not really fair to compare AEW's biggest show of the entire year to Saturday night's main event or to an NXT show. And to that, I say fair. Under most circumstances, I wouldn't be making that comparison. However, WWE forced me to make that comparison by counter-programming AEW. I just hope that they don't do this, but I know that they're going to continue to do this for every single AEW show. Anyways, I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm tired. I've been watching a lot of wrestling. Let's start off by talking about the first match of the night that had Randy Orton defeating Drew McIntyre. It's important to note that Randy Orton went out there with his heavy muscled security guard Jelly Roll, and Drew McIntyre went out there with his absolute BFF forever in Logan Paul. Look, I can maybe convince myself that Randy Orton might go out there with Jelly Roll to have a good old time, but I'm never going to try and even attempt to convince myself that Drew McIntyre is going to go out there with the help of Logan Paul. Why does he need Logan Paul in the first place? What, to even out the odds? What are the odds? Jelly Roll? That's what Drew McIntyre is so concerned with, that he needs Logan Paul? Everything that I would imagine Drew McIntyre hates about the WWE personified to go out there and help him? I don't think so. Regardless, the actual match between Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre was fine. It was literally nothing special. It certainly wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't this groundbreakingly good match that warrants having, I don't know, a tag match where we now have to shackle 3 main event players, Randy Orton, Logan Paul, and Drew McIntyre, to a match with Jelly Roll. During the match, we have Jelly Roll and Logan Paul on the outside. They're jabbing and blabbing at each other. Then all of a sudden, Jelly Roll is so alpha that he's able to just outmuscle Logan Paul and shove him, which opens up a door for Drew McIntyre to scream at Jelly Roll, and then he turns and then he eats an RKO from Randy Orton, and Randy Orton picks up the victory. I'm kind of rushing through the match because the match was a little bit of a nothing burger. Again, just nothing like super special. The big thing comes in the post-match angle, which sets us up for SummerSlam officially, because we have Logan Paul start to beat down Randy Orton. Then Jelly Roll goes into the ring. He once again little bros Logan Paul, but then Drew McIntyre kicks Jelly Roll's head off. And then of course the managers come out, how can you do that? He's a civilian, ignoring the fact that Jelly Roll kind of got himself physically involved in the first place. But you know, now that Randy Orton and Jelly Roll are such best friends, Randy Orton is so sad and so upset that Jelly Roll got his head kicked in. And then they have a backstage interview where Randy says, man, I'm so sorry for putting you in danger. I'm never going to do that again. I should have known better than to put you out there in the firing line of guys like Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. And then Jelly Roll's like, yeah, but like I want more of it. All right, I know I won't put you in the line of fire again, but how about you and I work together and have a match at SummerSlam? SummerSlam against them. I'm obviously exaggerating a little bit, but I'm honestly not that far off. That's basically how it went. So we basically sent Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre to have, a pretty rudimentary match that you would expect to see on something like Friday Night SmackDown to officially set up the tag match between Randy Orton and Jelly Roll to go up against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. And look, I am somebody that is entirely pro celebrities in WWE. Celebrities have been part of professional wrestling since before I was even born. So I'm used to this. I see this literally all the time, and more often than not, celebrity appearances are honestly pretty good and pretty fun. However, I think the fundamental problem with this is made even more apparent with Seth Rollins' injury, because they are tying up 3 main eventers for this one match on a major show that has 2 nights. I would think logic would dictate that you would want these 3 main event guys maybe having 3 separate feuds or feuds with one another so that you can pad out the 2 nights of SummerSlam, right? So I do think it's a little bit bizarre to tie up 3 of these main eventers with one match with one celebrity. And I'm not gonna get into the debate as to whether or not Jelly Roll is a big enough celebrity to warrant this. I don't really know anything about Jelly Roll, but clearly he's famous enough for the WWE to think that a spot like this is necessary. But now with Seth Rollins' injury really bringing a lot into question with regards to the main event scene, I have to imagine that WWE is probably regretting shackling these 3 giant names going into SummerSlam with Jelly Roll. I'm still, I guess, a little bit confused and maybe just kind of in a little bit of shock and awe that this is how they're going to be using both Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. Logan Paul, I can see, he himself is a celebrity. I think him and Jelly Roll kind of vibe well and could make an interesting show out of it. But Randy and Drew McIntyre just do not seem like the type of guys that you should be putting in this. Anyways, fine match. Post-match segment was fine. It was executed fine. It's just that the end result of the post-match with the official announcement of the tag match makes me want to vomit. All right, I'm gonna say it. This is easily the most controversial thing that I've ever said or ever done on this channel, but Bombas socks are easily the best, most comfortable socks that I've ever worn in my entire life. Listen, as I get older as a man, it is becoming harder and harder for people to shop for me, whether it's for my birthday or for Christmas. Let me just tell you, if you ever want to get me something, just get me Bombas socks, all right? And as it happens, today's video is indeed sponsored by Bombas. So let me tell you why they've become my new obsession lately. You need to understand, these aren't just any socks. They have built-in arch support, no toe seams, and they actually stay up all day. I wear them in the house to lounge, when I go out to the gym, even on long flights, especially their compression socks. And listen, Bombas isn't just socks. They've got t-shirts that are buttery soft. They've got underwear that, frankly, you'll forget that you're even wearing it. But please, wear it. I've been gifting Bombas to my family, recommended it to friends, and honestly, everyone at this point has been converted. But the best part, Bombas is purpose-driven. That means that for every item that you buy, they actually donate one to someone experiencing homelessness. So far, they've donated over 150 million items. By the way, there is a 100% happiness guarantee with Bombas, so if they get damaged in the laundry, maybe they just don't fit right, or maybe you just change your mind, they've got you. And right now, new customers to Bombas get 20% off if you just go to bombas.com/SantiZap and use code SantiZap at checkout. So feel good and do good with Bombas. Your feet will thank you, and so will someone else. Thank you again to Bombas for sponsoring today's video and keeping my feet warm, and also giving my dog more socks to chew on. But let's get you back to today's video. Now let's talk about Solo Sikoa defeating Jimmy Uso for the United States Championship. The existence of this match was already kind of dubious. Why did Jimmy get this match? You might say, well, Santi, Jimmy pinned Solo Sikoa on Friday Night SmackDown, which totally is a fair argument. That should get you a title match. However, the title match was announced before Jimmy even had a match with Solo Sikoa, so why did they give him that match in the first place? Whatever, I'm willing to throw logic out the window because it is Saturday night's main event. But yeah, this match basically had no build going into this. It was just, hey, let's give us an excuse to somehow feature feature Jacob Fatu in a way that sets us up to give him a match at SummerSlam, which is exactly what this ultimately ended up being. But that being said, the match was actually pretty fun, and if anything, demonstrated how deep the moveset of Jimmy Uso is, because I'm just going to say it, I think he's better than Jay. There was also another problem with this match, and that was the fact that the crazy all-in main event, the Texas death match between Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page, was happening during this match. All of the crazy stuff that they were doing, putting each other through barbed wire tables. We had a bed of nails. We had some crazy stuff happening over there, and Solo and Jimmy were having a tough time keeping my attention away from it. But hey, Solo Sikoa was able to pick up the victory, a victory he desperately needed, because since winning the US title at Night of Champions, the man has been a losing machine, not just losing matches, but getting pinned in those matches. And by the way, the matches that he's been getting pinned in are tag matches, where you literally had other people that could have taken the pin. But yeah, the match ultimately ended up being a numbers game, as it's going to traditionally be with Solo Sikoa. I will say Tala Tonga looked pretty good in this in terms of him being a henchman. He has a nasty big boot that legitimately looks like it's gonna knock your head off. But even Solo's win was weak, because it was a roll-up where Tala Tonga gave more leverage to Solo to be able to sink the pin deeper. Solo's able to pick up the victory and is still our United States champion. But then there is a post-match beatdown. The MFT and Solo Sikoa start beating down on Jimmy. He hits the thumb on him, and then Jacob Fatu comes out. Jacob Fatu clears house. He takes out Tala Tonga. He does his little shimmy and his little shake, and I think this presumably sets us up for a rematch between Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa at SummerSlam. I think this is all it was, because again, as I said at the beginning of this segment, Jimmy and Solo as a match existing in terms of like what was the groundwork for it made no sense for it to exist in the first place. This was just WWE finding an excuse to reinsert Jacob Fatu back in the picture, make him look strong as we build towards SummerSlam. Nothing special here, nothing bad, nothing egregious, just something that I feel would have been equally suited, again, to just an episode of Friday Night SmackDown. Now let's talk about what went down between Jade Cargill and Naomi. Funny enough, the best thing that happened on this show was something that wasn't a match or wasn't announced for this show in the first place. We had a segment in between matches where they were showing different WWE superstars. They were showing like JC Jane, Blake Monroe, they had Io Sky, they had Rhea Ripley, and then they showed Jade Cargill, who was then promptly attacked by Naomi, and then they would go on to have a really fun brawl with one another. A brawl that like legitimately lasted a good amount of time, and honestly did a really great job at getting me even more excited for their no holds barred match at Evolution. But then we have Nick Aldis come out, and he makes the announcement that this match is now going to have a special guest referee, and that special guest referee ended up being Bianca Belair, who is returning to the WWE after her injury to her fingers. And this is great. We already know that Bianca Belair can be a special guest referee. She has precedent, she has experience in the match with Io Sky and Rhea Ripley in the lead up to WrestleMania. But also this means that we now have a returning Bianca Belair that won't appear in the Battle Royal, and thus just automatically win that championship opportunity for Clash in Paris. Guys, it's late, I'm sorry. If anything, this probably just means that it's going to continue the feud between Naomi and Bianca Belair, and they'll go on to have a match at SummerSlam, and then Jade Cargill will have her match against Tiffany Stratton at SummerSlam. Jade Cargill will probably win. Naomi will probably cash in, and we'll probably get the big 3 triple threat at some point this fall, or maybe they save it till WrestleMania. But yeah, I just wanted to throw this in here, even though it wasn't a match. It's absolutely totally worth talking about, because like I said, I think it was the best thing that happened all night. So yeah, shout out to the ladies, because they did a really great job at getting me more excited for their show tomorrow, which desperately needs more hype, considering WWE just sort of shoved this at the end of a really packed weekend. Now let's talk about what really has everybody talking: LA Knight defeating Seth Rollins. Before we talk about the injury and the implications and all of the dominoes that are going to fall with the injury to Seth Rollins, I gotta talk about the match, because the match was actually like really solid. Like LA Knight and Seth Rollins had shockingly good chemistry, better chemistry than I was expecting. They were really putting together a really nice, solid match that would be worthy of a stage like Saturday night's main event. It was definitely on pace to be the best match of the night, if you ask me. But then we had a sequence where Seth Rollins kind of turns back the clock, and he was kind of starting to look a little bit like the Architect of old, where he did a springboard swanton, and then he rolled through it, and he did another springboard backflip where he landed on his feet, and then something instantly happened to the knee. When you go back and look at the replay, I don't have the eye to tell, like, oh yeah, look at how weirdly it bent. It looked like a regular landing to me, but you can instantly see in Seth Rollins' eyes that something went wrong. His reaction time to grabbing his knee also did not look like it was something that was staged. I think we have a very, very legitimate Seth Rollins injury. And I thought it was legitimate at the time. I know I had some people in my chat saying, hey, maybe this is just a work to have a cash in at the end of the night. And I was really hopeful that that was the case, but I was really, really pessimistic. Just kind of seeing his immediate reaction and the shock in his face, I just knew that something actually went wrong there. And it was made even more apparent when a very clear audible was made with referee and superstars and doctors were talking to one another, and Seth Rollins got up, limped, took an BFT from LA Knight, who looked really upset about the whole thing as well. LA Knight pins Seth Rollins, and they don't turn the camera to Seth. We don't hear the commentary team talk about anything related to the knee injury and the faction and the result or anything like that. They really move away from everything that happened very, very quickly. And traditionally, that has been a sign that, yeah, this is probably a very, very real thing. And now that the show has ended, we have some more information that's come out. One of the things that we saw was footage from the arena showing that Seth Rollins was indeed being helped to the back, and that was not something that was televised. Again, usually another sign that this is a real injury. But then we had Sean Ross Sapp tweeting that the general belief backstage was that the injury is very much legitimate. But then we also have other sources like WrestleOps saying that the injury is indeed very much legitimate. Not only that, but that Seth Rollins was actually scheduled to win that match, and that the win going to LA Knight was a complete audible and change based on whatever they actually had planned. And no, we didn't have Seth Rollins at the end of the night cash in, ha 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 ha, I just tricked you all. No, we had none of that. And holy hell, does this just fundamentally rock everything that WWE has been building towards for SummerSlam and beyond. First and foremost, he's our Money in the Bank briefcase holder. What does this mean for the briefcase? If he's out for like a super significant amount of time, is he going to relinquish the briefcase? If he does relinquish the briefcase, does he get to give it to somebody? Does it just go into the ether and they have another match? Or maybe because he gets a whole year, maybe they don't have to relinquish it at all. Again, all of these things are up in the air with this injury. What are we going to do with Seth's faction? That faction needs Seth Rollins. It needs Seth Rollins to survive, to be relevant, to be important. How severe is the knee injury? Are we talking about a 2015 ACL destruction that kept him out for a really, really long time? Or are we talking about a minor meniscus tear like he had after the Jinder Mahal match that did keep him out for several months, but he was able to continue to be an on-screen character into the build-up to WrestleMania 40? If he is injured, how long is he going to be out? Is SummerSlam out of the picture? Is the rest of the year out of the picture? Is WrestleMania out of the picture? And also now, what do we do with all of the different feuds that Seth Rollins and his faction had? Because Seth Rollins had so many hands in different cookie jars against Sami Zayn, against Jey Uso. He had a thing against Gunther, against LA Knight, CM Punk, Roman Reigns. This guy was everywhere for Monday Night Raw. And losing him is such a giant blow to the WWE. I can't begin to describe to you how much this must ruin things for them. And now I go back to talking about the whole Jelly Roll thing with those three main eventers being stuck in that feud. We've lost Seth Rollins. I think that we need these guys to do something else and to pivot away from that now. Again, these are all things that are rushing through my head. I know that these are questions that are rushing through your head. We won't really know probably until Monday or the next several days the severity of the knee injury and how much it impacts ultimately for WWE programming. But right now, unfortunately, I'm thinking the worst, but hoping for the best. That's all I can really do. Obviously, I sincerely hope that Seth Rollins is going to be okay. If he's not going to be okay, if it's going to be a really long time, I wish him nothing but the best in his recovery, in his rehab. This sucks for everyone, and of course it sucks for Seth Rollins too. Now, when it comes to LA Knight, is it now going after Gunther? If he was meant to lose here, maybe he was never meant to go after Gunther, but now he technically has a win, and now you have a main eventer that's out. Maybe you elevate LA Knight to the main event. What do you do with CM Punk? Does CM Punk go after Gunther? See, these are all things that are now just so up in the air, and we only have 3 weeks to figure this out. If we had 5 or 6, then maybe we could do something like a great patchwork job to really salvage this. But 3 weeks, brother, that is just not enough time to replace somebody as big a player as Seth Rollins is. Oh man, this is tough. This was a really, really gutting injury. This sucks in every way, shape, and form. And now let's talk about the main event, Gunther defeating Goldberg for the World Heavyweight Championship in Goldberg's retirement match. Listen, I'll be the first one to tell you that I thought that this was way better than it had any right to be, and significantly longer than I expected. I thought that this match was going to be maybe 6 minutes long, but this thing clocked in at nearly 15 minutes. And it started off hype, man. A Goldberg entrance with his friends and his son by his side. That was hype as hell. And it kind of turned the clock back on me. I've been rather cynical about Goldberg over the last several years, but knowing that this was his last match, seeing his entrance, hearing the thunderous pop of the Atlanta crowd for him, it got me excited, man. During that entrance, I was so ready for this match. And I'm not sure if maybe the Seth Rollins injury maybe caused that match to end significantly earlier than we were expecting, and thus the Goldberg match went longer than expected. We'll never truly know. But in the 14 minutes that we actually got a pretty decent match. And one of the things that I said was that if Gunther could actually get a decent match out of Goldberg that is more than 3 minutes, then Gunther has no business being a WWE superstar. He should be a headlining magician in Las Vegas, because that is some wizard level magic. And here we are. We got some wizard level magic. Was this a banger 5-star match better than Kenny Omega and Okada at All In? Hell no. It's not a fundamentally like good grappling session, but it was a fun little chaotic affair. I love the start of the match with Goldberg absolutely being a brick wall on Gunther, with Gunther's chops doing absolutely zero damage to Goldberg. That was great. I like the way that they went to commercial break with Goldberg missing a spear on Gunther and going through the barricade. That was nice and a good way to artificially lengthen the Goldberg and Gunther match. We even have Gunther doing Gunther things. He takes off Goldberg's knee brace, starts beating him with him. He even goes to taunt his son, Gage. And last time that I've seen Gunther taunt a family member ringside, it always ends really poorly for him. So I started getting kind of nervous at that point. Gage did jump the barricade, and he's a big fucking kid. I mean, he is a football player for Colorado, so I'm not particularly surprised. But seeing him next to Gunther, he may have been bigger than Gunther. But then when Gunther gets back in the ring, he eats a spear, then eats a jackhammer, and then Goldberg almost actually wins. Oh, I forgot to mention that before all of that, Goldberg goes for a spear and completely breaks poor Charles Robinson in half. This man, Charles Robinson, needs to be in the WWE Hall of Fame yesterday, and he needs to get a triple pay raise yesterday as well, because this man is putting his body on the line in every show now. Anyways, back to the match sequence. We then just have Gunther putting Goldberg in a sleeper hold. We have the last desperation moment from Goldberg, but then ultimately he does get put to sleep by Gunther, and Gunther retains in what honestly was a more fun match than I was expecting. Here's where things get criminal though, because it is Eastern time, 9:57. There are 3 minutes left on the show, and they decide to go to commercial break. Explain that to me. And then in that commercial break, they come back with 60 seconds to do Goldberg's getting his flowers moment and getting to do his final retirement speech, and they cut him off. They go dark. They end the show while Goldberg is giving his speech. What the hell is that? That is some disrespectful shit, if you ask me. Honestly, if it meant making the match shorter, making it say, I don't know, 12 minutes to give Goldberg that time in the sun to be able to have his little retirement speech, that's what they should have done. But also, they just shouldn't have gone to commercial break with 3 minutes left. Who the hell is organizing this? That is a mess. It was a sour end to what honestly was a pretty fun match. Shout out to Goldberg. The man put in way more work than I think any of us were expecting in this final match. Sure, it's not going to win any match of the years, but I think everyone that watched it, at the very least, walked away having some fun. So yeah, sure, I'll give it a thumbs up. Why not? All right, folks, that's it for today's review. Again, just a little bit impromptu, but I thought you guys would like it anyway, but that's it. I'm done. Goodbye. Get out of here.